Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I continue to work on the Grimball's Beast box. Last week I assembled the Pershings. I will link that video here. This week I will have a look at the M4A3 Shermans. The box includes 5 Sherman Sprues, with which you can build a few different flavours of Sherman. You can build 2 turrets, the earlier, more rounded turret with either the 75mm or 105mm guns, or the later turret in either regular or up-armoured varieties. The hull can also be up-armoured. The parts on these sprues are very neatly moulded and don't have much by way of mould lines or flash. Just like with the Pershings, a crew sprue is included, so you get 2 in the box. The decal sheet is shared between all vehicles in the box. Fortunately, there are plenty of them. I begin assembly the same way as with the Pershings, with magnetisation. Glue magnets into the hull and into both turret bottoms. These models magnetise very easily, which I like. Next, I start assembling the hull. The transmission is glued in place on the front of the lower hull, and then the tracks can be installed. These are well keyed to ensure a correct fit. You can't mess this up without significant effort. Glue them into place, and then the upper hull can also be attached. Be sure to press the parts all the way together, it's kind of a tight fit. I then go on to add the stowage rack at the rear of the hull. I was a bit sloppy with this. I put the glue too low and then asked about trying to get the correct position of the rack. Much like with the Pershings, I am a bit disappointed that Battlefront included a stowage rack but didn't include a single thing to put on it. I then glue the upper front plate to the front of the hull. There is a different hull front for the up-armoured version and some pieces of applique armour for the hull sides. Next, the hull machine gun is glued in. This part is seriously tiny and was a pain to even clip off the sprue without breaking. Now for some details. The kit does come with a few pieces of spare track links, so I glued some of those to the front of the hulls in various places. Unfortunately, these track links are the only stowage included. That didn't stop me though. I searched through my Plastic Soldier Company bits box and glued on a couple of pieces of stowage. It isn't a lot of stuff, but it does add a little bit of interest and it will help differentiate tanks from each other. Now onto the turrets. Start by gluing the 2 halves together. This is the later, I believe 76mm turret, and I'm building the regular non-up-armoured version. The parts go together very well. The back of the gun mantlet has a helpful arrow to let you know which way is up. It's very easy to correctly glue into place. Unfortunately, you can't really change the elevation or depression of the gun. Then I glued the commander's hatch in. This can of course be modelled open. Next comes the pintle-mounted machine gun. Be careful clipping this from the sprue. The barrel seems like it would be easy to break off. And finally, after cleaning it up, I glue the main gun into place. The gun and mantlet are keyed so they only go together correctly. Unfortunately, the gun barrel was a bit too small for me to drill out without risking destroying the part. Now onto the cast turret, which I believe carried a 75mm gun. It goes together much like the previous turret. First, glue the halves together. Next, I attach the rear gun mantlet part to the front of the turret. Like on the other turret, this part also has a helpful up arrow. The commander's cupola is then glued on. Be sure to position it correctly. The hatch opens out over the right side of the turret. Speaking of the hatch, I glue that in next. This time I'm modelling it open so that I can use one of the included tank commanders. I do wish the inside of the hatch had a little bit more detail. I then glue the gun and mantlet into position. Be sure to get this part as close to centred as you can. You don't want a lopsided gun. This is the commander I chose. I'm not sure that the helmet is appropriate for a tanker, but I really like that he's talking into a radio. I'm going to leave him unglued until I paint these tanks. Let's have a quick look at this Battlefront Sherman versus the Plastic Soldier Company Sherman. Right away, you can see that the lighter coloured Plastic Soldier Company version is significantly smaller. Not being the rivet counter type, I couldn't tell you which is closer to being correct for 15mm scale. I personally don't think the difference is big enough to worry about the smaller tank having an advantage with things like using cover in a game. The only problem I'd have is they wouldn't quite look right in a platoon together. Both are reasonably detailed, though very different in some of their details. They're obviously slightly different versions of a Sherman. I like both of these Shermans, but I do like the Battlefront version a little bit more. I find its detailing and appearance to be just a little bit more satisfying. Of course, both kits have their pros and cons. Battlefront gets points for allowing both turrets to be built without having to make extra parts with green stuff, while Plastic Soldier Company gets points for including a little bit more stowage than just the spare track links. Though those boxes I added didn't come from a Sherman kit. There are a couple of detail pieces I left off these models, those being the hedgerow cutters that go on the front of the tank, and a secondary machine gun for the turret roof. Overall, I'm really happy with how these tanks have turned out. These Shermans were very easy to build and didn't take too long at all. The only issue I had with building them, much like the Pershings, is the lack of included instructions and the large amount of different parts for different variants potentially causing confusion. The details are crisp and good looking. The parts didn't need much in the way of cleanup and fit together very well, making for a fun build. Also, much like the Pershings, these tanks can be bought separately if you aren't interested in the other items in the Grimball's Beast box. Though if you're looking to start an American tank army, I would say this box is the way to go. What do you think? If you have any comments, I'm always happy to see them in the comment section below or on Facebook or Twitter, which are linked in the description. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more. My Grimball's Beasts build will continue the week after next. Thanks for watching, farewell.